We're going to talk to you about the Pokemon beta. So we're going to try and keep this segment contained to half an hour simply because this was recorded after work and people want to go home. I don't know if you realize that, but we have lives. But let's introduce this panel. Miranda Sanchez joins us.
Hello.
Andrew Goldfarb joins us.
Hello.
And Callie Pleggy is joining us once again.
Hello.
So let's go around the room real fast. Say your level you attained in Pokemon Go, how many Pokemon you have caught. Oh wait, yeah. How many Pokemon in your Pokedex and how many you actually caught, which are all relevant stats that will make sense to you in a few minutes. I promise.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am level 4. I caught 43. In my Pokedex, I have 26, and I'm a gym leader.
Nice,
man.
Nice. That's the extra stipulation on that. All right.
Bonus.
I am level 4, but getting close to 5. I have 23 in my Pokedex. I've caught 44. And I went to a gym and died a whole bunch and only won one sad battle.
There is a tough gym by your house, though, which
also,
does not play around.
If you go to the subway right by work, there's a dude with like a crazy, his like thousands of HP. I can't come close to it.
Yeah, no, I couldn't come close to it either.
Not that I would go to subway.
All right, so I am a level 6 Pokemon trainer. I have 46 Pokemon in my Pokedex. I have caught 125 of them. And I'm also a gym leader. I should have gone last. I'm sorry, Callie.
How do you follow that?
Let's go.
I apologize. Yeah, I went a little crazy with this. All right, you're up.
I'm level 4, also approaching 5 like Andrew. I have 30 in my Pokedex and I've caught 71.
Nice.
And I also went to a gym and lost because I am also in a high, there's a lot of field testers where I live and those gyms are hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we're. Oh, no, go ahead.
I stood there for so long. I was like, I am gonna win this gym.
There's a gym like near my CVS that I go to, so I walked to CVS and I was like, I might as well challenge this gym, and I got wrecked.
I was on a really awkward street corner. I was like,
Me
whatever.
too. Me too. I'm like on the street,
nice.
like just tapping my phone, and people are walking by like, this isn't the weirdest thing I've seen in this city, but okay.
Which, yeah, and we're going to get into that because even though it's called Pokemon Go, it is very much Pokemon Go and stop and go and stop and go and stop and go and catch a Pidgey and then go. There's a lot going on. And just lastly, Miranda, even if you didn't take that gym, you got a Jolteon, which is probably one of the coolest Pokemon that has been collected, at least of this
Want to
group.
update and say I've now caught 45 Pokemon?
That's
Andrew.
Nice. Pay attention. All right, so we're going to break this down. So if you're not in the know and you're wondering, well, what is Pokemon Go? First of all, you may be living under a rock, and that's fine. But Pokemon Go is a mobile collaboration between Niantic, who formerly made a game called Ingress. They used to be a part of Google, but then they spun off on their own. The Pokemon Company, who are the stewards of the Pokemon brand and make a bunch of Pokemon spin-off games. And lastly, Nintendo, who's involved in this as well, being that they are creating and selling the Pokemon Go Plus, which we don't have access to yet, but this is an accessory that you can use with this app, which you can play on your iOS or Android device. So we got into the Pokemon Go field test this weekend. We started on Saturday, and we're going to break down our experience across 4 categories right here. So we're going to start with the catching them all, the collection aspect. We're going to then head into battle, talk about exploring in our neighborhoods and how cool that was, and then lastly, what do we want to see going forward from Pokemon Go. So we're going to try and make this as entertaining for you as possible. Let's start with collection, which hooked me right away, but I want to lead off with you guys talking about it. So what was that experience like for you guys? Because it is very different than the games, and we have to stress that for folks listening.
Go ahead.
Yes.
You're
so
ready.
Jolteon.
Yeah, you got that Jolteon.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like a lot of times you see the Rattata, you see the Pidgey, they are everywhere. But sometimes in the bottom corner of your screen, you can pull up a little menu and see how close certain Pokemon are. You'll see their silhouettes if you haven't caught them yet or seen them. And I saw the outline of a Jolteon, knowing what Jolteon looks like, and I just like left my house immediately. I had just gotten home and it's like hot, and it's like, oh hey, I'm home, and I checked Pokemon Go. I was like, I'm out.
Yeah. It's like a little game of who's that Pokemon in the bottom right corner. Like if you haven't seen the anime, that was always fun when I was a kid. I was like, I'm really good at recognizing silhouettes.
We were trained for this all along.
So this has been many years in the making, but it is really cool to, like, I turned around for a Ghastly, because I love Ghastly. I almost turned around for a Snorlax, but I was late to a thing I had to be at work. I was late to work.
Yeah. For some reason, going up to your boss and saying, I was late to work because I had to go catch a Squirtle, which almost happened to me. I was running late on Tuesday, I want to say, or on Monday, and it showed up. So you can see on your app who are nearby, like Miranda said, and if it's one you have caught, it's a filled in silhouette. If it's one you haven't caught, you have to be able to tell, and props to you for being able to tell, you guys to be able to tell which ones they are, because I'm a bit more casual with the series, but I know what a Squirtle looks like, and I was like, basically you then have to vaguely figure out which direction it's in, because it only tells you how many meters it is away, and the number can go up or down depending on where you're going. Now, someone actually, when I told them about that, and I said, I walked for like 10 minutes and then I missed my window, and they were like, were you not frustrated by that? And I was like, I don't feel like I was, just because I feel like this is what you're signing on for. This game is very much about Pokemon in the real world, and you have an opportunity to catch them, and you're either going to stumble on them or you're not.
Yeah, I think that the thing that drew me in about the collection aspect is that it's not super easy, depending on if you're walking in the wrong direction, you realize too late, or sometimes Pokemon run away like they do in the games
when you catch them.
Yeah, when you're trying to catch them. So I liked that. Like, I felt that's why I turned around for that Ghastly, right? Because I was like, I've seen plenty of Rattata, like I've seen plenty of Pidgeys, but I haven't seen Ghastly yet. I gotta turn around for Ghastly, and I thought that was really interesting, because in the games, in the 3DS games, I mean, this is also a game, if you see a Pokemon in one place, almost always, unless it's a legendary, you'll be like, I can come back later, and I can go on Wonder Trade. And like, this was like, I gotta go outside and do this myself. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna feel accomplished.
Yeah,
that's what I liked about it.
Yeah, and I spent most of Saturday like out of the house, and I don't really explore my neighborhood. I live up in the East Bay. By the way, we have an awful Zubat infestation problem. Like, I swear, like, how many Zubats do you catch on the daily? I would say many, many.
Yep.
Many.
Yeah,
and
Pidgey. Zubat and Pidgey are everywhere.
Yeah. But then I would walk to the mall nearby and just find a bunch of different things on my way, screenshotting them all. And I gotta say that the graphics of this thing, I've tried AR games before and have always felt slightly disappointed, because the technology involved always felt very creaky. Like, at any moment it can break, or the graphics of the thing that they're trying to show me just didn't look that great. They look awesome. Like, they're very simple. They're not super shaded or very detailed. But at the same time, when you take your photos out in the real world, which we're not allowed to share, we were told, like, you can't do that.
They have some on the Pokemon Go information page already. So
good point. Yeah. They look fantastic. And Magikarp looks like he's in trouble no matter where you take a picture.
Oh yeah, we're taking a lot of funny Magikarp pictures, and I think it's worth noting that this is, as far as we know, the first 150 Pokemon, so first generation Pokemon, which means they are going to be, their actual designs are less detailed, so I think that helps with the AR. The way it looks is you're not dealing with some of the more detailed designs that you see in later games. But I thought it's very charming, like a little Clefairy. Like, Clefairy looked so nice in my, like, a dinky part of my apartment. Like, I was catching Clefairy, and there's like sort of like this like stack of games I haven't organized yet, and it's in the background. I'm like, man, I gotta clean my apartment. I cleaned my apartment because I was like, Clefairy looks bad. I gotta make.
What's Clefairy gonna think of me?
Clefairy's gonna judge me. And like it was so cute. I wanted to take a screenshot, but I was embarrassed because, like, it's this cute little pink fairy.
Yeah.
It's that weird, like, when it looks bad, it's generally my fault. Like, if I'm like, when I'm playing the game how you're not supposed to, if I'm like laying like a lump with like peanut butter stains all over my chest, and like I'm like, oh, there's a Pidgey, and I'm like playing it like lying on my back, then like the zoomed in AR angle looks awful, because it's like a crappy, awful reflection of me in the distance or something, and it zooms in on it. But like, but if you're playing it like up and walking around, it really does, like, number one, it like never feel they don't look out of place, weirdly, because like, of course they're out of place, but they still look right.
Yeah,
and the 3D models,
yeah.
like, once you catch them in your Pokedex, you can like look at them and like spin them around and stuff, and it's like, I like the style of it. It's not trying to make them look real. It's just making them look like that, almost that Pokemon Stadium art style a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah, no, and I think that's really important. And then to catch them, you're lobbing Pokeballs at them.
Yep.
And so there is no battling between your Pokemon and that Pokemon, which completely rewrites the way we've been playing and interacting, I feel, with most Pokemon games.
It's sort of like how Ash Ketchum in the anime sort of approached he was just kind of like, I'll find a Pokemon in the grass, oh my god. Like,
but it works.
Yeah, the first time when Jose, when you and I went on our first walk around the Embarcadero, that's the impression I got, that this was more like the world building of Pokemon than the mechanics of Pokemon. I mean, that's the big difference that we do want to stress, is like, it feels very different, but it also feels the same as far as the sense of adventure goes. And so I think I like that I don't have to whittle a Pokemon's HP down and get, and now I have, Thunder Wave and it's paralyzed. So that'll increase my chances by whatever percent it is. And
you don't have to do that thinking.
As someone, I have all this math in my head somewhere because this is the kind of thing I care about with the mainline series.
No, and then you also have Pokemon who will straight up Matumbo a Pokeball. They'll have an animation where they'll jump up and slap, and they just hit the ball away, and it's like, nope, not yet. And then you have to make a decision of, okay, is it because, like, if you see an art, so there's this weird catching mechanic that at first doesn't hit you right away because there's a white circle and then there's a green circle within it that gets smaller, but sometimes that green circle instead is orange, which means you have a less likely chance. Red means you have an even lower chance of catching in, so you have to use a different Pokeball to increase your chances.
And yet, even when it's big and green, they'll come out.
I feel like it's not guaranteed.
It's a very unclear system.
It's like, why is the circle getting smaller?
Why is it contracting? I experimented
I thought
with
it was a time thing. Like, I thought it was if the circle gets too small, they're going to flee. But nope, it just comes back. Like, I never... Also, like, I probably have, like, done awful things in terms of littering Pokeballs all over the environment of San Francisco because, like, I bought, like... Because, like, at least the field test, I'm sure it won't be like this in the final thing, but we get kind of refresh money every day for the store. I'm imagining that won't be in the real life game.
Probably real money.
Generous.
Yeah. So, like, every day...
Or it might be based on some achievements in the game. I wouldn't be surprised if they have some way to give you some money, but I wouldn't be surprised if the majority is money you're paying.
Because every morning I would turn it on and it would be like, oh, the professor gave you a gift, and I would have 2,500 coins to spend, and I would just buy, like, 400 Pokeballs because you buy them in increments of 100, and then I could just kind of willy-nilly just like,
And to make it clear for folks, this is a field test, right? And so, but even the description of how to catch is very loose. I'm looking at it, and there's a screen within the game that says, when a Pokemon appears, throw a Pokeball on it to try and catch it. Like, they don't explain the circle system to you, so I feel like that's why we were kind of flailing for a little bit. But based on how hard you swipe on your screen depends on, or how far you swipe, depends on the velocity and how far the ball travels. And then you can put some spin on it. You could throw a curveball at it. You actually get style points for catching them with like a curveball or
and
a
I've
nice
gotten
throw
more
or a great
confident
throw.
with it too. Like those. And when you get a great, you're like,
I'm like,
get in there. Come on.
Well,
Give me the Pokemon.
I'm like, look, I'm on my way to Chipotle. I gotta do this.
Or if you're like walking with some, like we were walking with one of our coworkers to BART, and we're like, oh wait, sorry, we gotta catch this Pokemon super fast.
And luckily, we are in the position where our coworkers don't think that's weird. But I can imagine if I were, with people who didn't care about Pokemon, or like people who are like, Callie, oh my God, we're going to dinner. Can you not?
You're the pallbearer at this funeral. You have to put your phone away.
Oh God. Yeah,
but there's a rare Pokemon.
There's ghost Pokemon at this funeral.
You can opt out of the AR stuff if you tap. So on the screen at the top right, there is a camera button that if you tap, it'll put up a generic day or nighttime background. So it does have a nighttime one, and you can just keep walking and just lob Pokeballs at it. The only thing is, lobbing Pokeballs does require you to kind of have some finesse to it. So it's a simple enough input, but it still requires a little bit of skill.
Yeah, so, like,
and so you might burn through a lot of Pokeballs.
Kind of hard.
I like that though.
It felt that way.
It's not just like an automatic, I pass by Pokemon and now it's mine. Like, I like that I have to do something.
And you feel like you earned it.
Yeah.
I mean, the most interesting thing I've heard was you talking about doing it in a car. Because that's crazy.
Not driving. She wasn't driving.
Yes, I was not driving. My boyfriend was driving the car. We were going home, and we had stopped just slow enough so that I could tap a Pokemon and try to catch it. And I found like an Onix, and I was like, you're mine. And so I was facing one way, but we had a really sharp turn, and so the Onix just like went behind me. I was like, no! But I didn't lose it, which is cool. So if you manage to tap one, so if you're like on any sort of public transportation, or if someone else is driving you, don't do it while you're driving, that's terrible. Then you can still catch it, which is cool.
I did that while walking too. Like, if you, like, a couple times I would throw a Pokeball, the Pokemon would get in it, and I'd be waiting for the caught or not caught signal, and then the AR resets. So if I was angled, like, I turned a corner and I did the same thing where, like, the Pokemon was behind me and I was kind of like, don't judge me, I'm doing this. And then it went in the Pokeball, and then when it came out and I had to do it again, it was in front of me, like, it reset, it reoriented. So that was cool. That was fine.
Yeah, and so I just feel like even though it was a slice, and I think collection was probably the most fully featured part of one of the few fully featured parts of the app, because field test didn't include trading. But let's transition then over to, let's talk about exploring a little bit before we talk about battle, because exploring is very important because you have to find and go to PokeStops. Who wants to define the PokeStops for folks listening? Go for it. Yeah.
So they decide PokeStops based on Niantic's previous game Ingress, kind of this crowdsourced data of important locations in individual neighborhoods. So Miranda's shaking her head. I'm not sure why yet.
Oh, you'll find out. I know why.
I remember why.
You should know why.
I know why. But usually they're murals. At least in my neighborhood, it's murals. It's historical buildings. There's a lot of murals in Berkeley, so I find a lot of those when I walk around there too. And
when you get there, what do you do at a PokeStop?
When you get there, you kind of like flip this coin. It has a picture of the real life place, and you get items out of it basically. And so it's kind of like this, I don't have to pay for all the Pokeballs I use. Like Andrew was saying earlier, you can go to the store, buy Pokeballs. You can also earn a couple from PokeStops.
Yeah.
You also get your revives that way.
Yes.
And a few other things, like there's some
Berries.
items you
Berries.
can't
There's a lot of
buy.
different items that come out.
And as you level up, some higher powered items will show up. Like I was getting like max potions, for example,
Yeah.
which I wasn't getting before because you hit a certain level. So it looks like that's part of it.
Yeah, and I thought one of the cool things about it is some of them, not all of them, had little bits of information about the place. So I was actually learning about the building that has the coffee shop I go to all the time.
Some of them are like really long too.
Yeah.
Like there's one actually right near the office that's like some like monument to a jazz musician. I read about it and I was like,
wow.
I didn't know any of this.
Yeah, so it's interesting, and at least around where I live, they were really frequent in one direction and really infrequent in another, and it had to do with there's like a downtown area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know people had expressed concerns like, what if I live in a really small town? How am I going to get PokeStops? And I think the noteworthy thing is, at least for our field test, they refreshed pretty quickly. So like I could walk away from a PokeStop and then walk back like 10 minutes later and I could do it again.
Yeah,
Yep.
no, and you'll get XP from doing that as well, which is really cool on top of items. Yeah, and it turned into this fun way to kind of learn more about my neighborhood. Like I feel like I know that was something that you had told me.
Yeah.
And where I live, I didn't know, for example, there was a school like several blocks away in like I think it was the eastern direction. And I was like, oh snap, this is cool. Like I didn't know this was all here. Also, I learned some things have changed in our neighborhood since Ingress. So for example, there was this one spot. It was an electric box. Just sort of one that was protected, like covered by the electric company, but it had an R2D2 like sort of stencil that was on the back that someone spray painted on. I went to that thing, went around the corner. It's been buffered over, but in the app it says there's supposed to be an R2 there, and I was just like, they killed R2.
It's funny because there's one right near work too, like because I've been playing mostly at the office actually. I mean, I've been doing my job and working very hard. But yeah, it's like Rick and Morty mural, and I walked to it after work yesterday, and there's totally not a Rick and Morty. It's like totally been pointed over.
it was
I remember it used
Yeah.
to be Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
So it's
they
weird
painted
because
over it.
like that's why I was in the wrong place. But no, I'm shocked that or not shocked. It'll be better when more people have it, because I wonder if you're like a power user, you'll be able to like take a picture and like redefine a PokeStop or something.
Or will the community be able to sort of either redefine them or
suggest them.
suggest them?
Submit them.
Because
Yeah, that would be
in
good.
like my tiny town that I'm originally from, I would imagine that like there aren't like landmarks to people not from there, but people who've lived there for like 50 years are going to be like,
I can
this
tell you where
drugstore.
I'm at in the East Bay. It's not a huge town, but at the same time, I mean, it's near San Francisco and near Oakland, so it's not that bad. But there weren't that many. But like the post office was one of them, which every town will have. Or there was a Denny's, believe it or not, that was one of them.
So-
for all the Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's if you're really worried, some restaurants will be marked as landmarks, like it was
Yes.
for me.
Oh, so
Yeah.
talk about
So
this.
it's really weird. There is a barbecue restaurant somewhat near my house, and one of the landmarks was guns. Because
Yeah,
there's like a gun display in the barbecue place. It was just like, what?
That's so weird.
Yeah,
It's just like
21st Amendment was a
guns.
PokeStop, by the way, which
Yep.
they serve
It's a
alcohol
bar,
there.
yeah.
I'm just like, hang on,
Yeah,
there's
so-
kids.
There are a few that are weird because there are a
That's a
few
good
that
point.
are like around this neighborhood are in gated apartment communities that you
Yeah.
can't get to unless you live in that apartment complex. So like that's kind of weird.
Yeah, and so like the ones, so I try to go to that barbecue place, and you actually have to get very close because most of them have a pretty good radius of like,
Yeah, you don't have to be like right in
Getting
front
to
of it
it.
usually.
Yeah,
There's one I
and-
can get from my apartment, like in my room.
yeah, and I had to go like really far to the rest, like really close to it to get to the 2 that were in there. And it was just kind of awkward. I was like, don't think I'm weird. I just need a max revive. Please leave me alone.
Please.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be right on top of the PokeStop, which I think you guys have said. You can be across the street or you could be within a certain vicinity. One
Yeah.
thing that was unclear is that underneath your avatar that shows up on a map, everything's displayed to you like some kind of a GPS, but you're not allowed to really scroll in every direction because they don't want you to use it as a GPS. I think they just want you to kind of be aware of what's nearby. Is that the circle underneath your character will sometimes expand very wide, and so
Yeah.
you're able to
Yeah.
reach a PokeStop
It's
fairly quickly. And then there are others where it's very small. The only other weird thing I had with exploring, by the way, the weirdest bugs I have been happening downtown. Now, this is a field test, so of course the nature of bugs is absolutely something that happens with these things. But like to see my avatar guy running around the bus station
Yeah.
block because the GPS could not find where I was really weird. Like I was like,
Yeah.
and I just kept getting PokeStops and kept running by a gym, but I couldn't challenge it because I never stayed there long enough to
Yeah.
do it. So there was that.
Yeah, like the GPS is weird because you can't like move it. So like I don't know, it was weird. Like I didn't always know, am I going in the right direction? I imagine someone who's not from there might be like, wait, is it on this side of the street? Is it on that side of the
Sometimes
street?
my character would walk backwards. I was
Yeah.
like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
I'm
but I-
going this way.
Exactly.
I
yeah.
do think like it was really valuable for me because having gone to school in where I live, and I've lived there since I went to school. It's really cool to see a different side of that town, like of that city, because I'll walk around and like I can go to the campus and I'm like, oh, they changed that building, and I hadn't done that since I left school, you know? Or I walked on a street I don't normally walk on and I found this beautiful church. Like, that's what I liked about it is the PokeStops encouraged me to go out of my way, not in an annoying way. Like, I wasn't taking crazy detours. I mean, I could have if I wanted to, but it was more like, oh, I get to go see this beautiful, lovely church that has this like heartfelt display outside of it.
Well, and I think that's part of it too, right? It did feel like a reason to go outside and get a little exercise, but
Yeah.
there was a game tied to it. The only other thing I'd heard of that had a sort of a gamified health and fitness angle, and not to say that's what this was going for, but I heard of this app where you're listening to a soundtrack
Zombies
of a
Run.
zombie apocalypse, and every once in a
Right.
while you got to pick up the pace or you're going to get eaten, which is roughly it, I think. And I was
Yeah.
just like, wait, what? First of all, I thought
Yeah, I
that
mean,
was
it's sort of
rad.
like a podcasty thing, Zombies Run. But
But that was basically the idea, and I was like, oh, that's cool. But this got me walking and just exercising and learning a lot more about where I live.
I literally stopped to smell a rose.
Oh.
It was
that's
really
dope.
cute. Yeah.
Poetic. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it very much. All right, cool.
One final note.
Yeah.
If you're driving around and trying to get PokeStops or on public transportation, it does not work because you're probably moving too fast, and once you get out of range, it will not let you collect it.
That's important to know.
Yeah, it works for, like you were saying earlier, like if you have even a split second to see a Pokemon, you can get one toss off, and if you're really lucky and get it from that, you can still catch it, even if you're like a mile down the road theoretically.
Yeah.
But yeah, Pokestops, you have to kind of linger.
Yeah, no, good point. All right, so then let's head over to Battle. Battle is probably the thing that Andrew liked the most, I think, of
Yeah.
this app. And the only place that battling exists is at gyms.
I feel like battling is weirdly the thing that is probably the most unique to Pokemon Go in some kind of weird way, because obviously, even in core Pokemon games, you're still collecting, you're still stopping by town centers and buying things, and there's like kind of versions of all of that, and obviously gym battles are sort of similar, but the battles themselves are much more specific to mobile, I think. They're not turn-based, you're not really learning moves, you're not even really doing worrying about weakness and stuff the way you would. I mean, I think you are.
It's
I think
still-
There
there's
are
it's
type
weakness
still-
there,
weaknesses.
but-
Yeah, there's
it's
still
still
that.
effective.
But you only have
stuff.
2 moves, so it's not like you can like really. And that was the only thing. You can switch Pokemon, but I was confused about how. And I've only done 2 gym battles, so this is actually something that you guys can probably speak a little better to. But like the basics of
It's
it.
not good.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't
it's
like it.
It's very simplified. It's basically you have 2 moves. One of them is that you can tap, and the battles are real time. They're not turn based, so you can tap and use kind of your weaker attack, or if you hold, you're essentially charging up your stronger
Special.
attack.
Yeah, special
And that's
attack.
the one that tends to be more of like the weakness oriented,
Yeah.
like
But
use
that
electric.
only charges as you do your basic attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once that charges, which is different for every Pokemon, then you can use it to do your attack.
Yeah. So then talk about your gym experience.
Yeah, so changing Pokemon was a hassle.
Yeah.
So because it is real time, you don't have a second to stop and change. So like you're risking your Pokemon's life if you're changing. So it's like really hard. It's like this one's getting too low. It's like, oh, this is not optimal. It's like, well, it's probably gonna get wrecked while you're trying to change it. So good luck.
Yeah.
Also, the dodging system is kind of a thing, so you just like swipe, and
Yeah,
all
you can
your
dodge.
Pokemon can go either way. But it feels really bad. Like it doesn't. I did a few effective dodges, and
Yeah, it wasn't
didn't
like your average
make
QTE
sense.
where okay, my window is coming up, or even take something that's very timing based, like I don't know, like a Rhythm Heaven Mega Mix or something, where like where the beat is that you have to look for in a song. In battles, it wasn't clear when was the right time to swipe and move. It just didn't seem very clear.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's not very good animation cues, which is all right, but it just felt like the dodgings that I did, because I did like constantly dodge and just didn't feel effective.
Yeah, when I was trying to do it, I normally screwed it up, and I did like 3 by mistake, though. When I was trying to hold down to activate a move, I actually kind of swiped it awkwardly, and that dodged, which is really weird.
So I'm hoping it's just a result of being a field test and not
Sure.
having like all the tutorial pieces in place to kind of teach us how it was supposed to work, which I'm not sure one way or the other whether it was, but it did feel really simple and it very different. I think the thing that may have rubbed some of us the wrong way too is that it is the only way to battle in the field test.
Yeah.
So like, picture a world full of trainers where everyone's carrying around a roster of Pokemon on their phone, but you can't challenge another person in real time. That doesn't seem to be part of Pokemon Go yet. And it's
That's my
something
whole
that we'll
problem.
get to
Yeah.
later. We
Yeah.
hope will be a part of this, because that's kind of a fun part of the game, right? We locked eyes and it's like, get your phone out,
Yeah,
let's
like
do
it's-
this.
Yeah, it's time
Yeah.
to go.
Yeah.
I've only done that in real life with 3DS once, and that was really cool. But yeah, I mean, like the other thing is like I couldn't practice. I practiced actually at a gym far away from stuff, and then I went kind of closer to where things are. And one of the gyms is like this pizza place, and it's in the middle of the street, and I can't just stop there. And like, so there were things that bothered me about that setup where I can't like. It's not like I'm challenging in a. I just really wish I could challenge people and like get used to the battle system. And before I go to someone, like some of the gyms near me were crazy strong.
And some of
that's-
the
I don't
gyms
know
aren't
how they-
exactly in the best place.
Well, that's what I mean,
Yeah, like
yeah.
one of mine was like by a highway entrance, and there was no good way to like just stand around. So I just kind of like got by a crosswalk and kind of got in a corner.
I'm
It's like,
picturing
I'm
this
gonna
in my
be
head.
here.
I'm like, what?
It was also really dark, and I was just
yeah.
like,
That's the
nobody
scary
talks
thing
to
is
me.
like, you're like, oh, I wandered onto a street I never go down. There was a beautiful church, but it's like, oh, I wandered down a street I never go down and I got shot. Like, it's like you think about, I mean, I didn't, I'm saying hypothetically, like, it is worth thinking about like where this stuff is. And I
Right.
think the battle system is weird to me because, I mean, you started this by saying it's the thing I like the most. It's more that like the battles themselves aren't really what I like. It's sort of the break in monotony is what I like.
Yeah.
Because I think for me, like I love Pokemon games. I've played every core Pokemon game except Black and White. But
That's okay.
I always like I never complete the Pokedex. Like for me, it's more about like that RPG stuff and picking my party and leveling them up really high and taking on the hard stuff. So this game, like the collecting stuff is fun, but like the idea of battling and taking over gyms is kind of more up my alley. I just wish, like you're saying, that you could do it more. Like I wish, even if it was against bots or just something.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think as part of the field test, they wanted you to just throw yourself at the mercy of a gym. But I think that when you encounter some of these gyms that the Pokemon are that powerful, it's kind of a turnoff. So I did take a gym. I walked far enough and found one that I was like, okay, this looks safe. I could probably take this one. And my first gym battle ended in defeat because apparently it seemed to be a one-on-one situation, and it wasn't clear to me that I had a party. Then on the next gym battle, I actually had a roster of 6, and I was able to swap
that
them in and out.
Happened to me too. Like I don't know what happened, but I only win with one Pokemon when you're supposed to have 6.
Yes, that's what kept happening to me.
So you can swap between them. So I set up 6. I set up my first, swapped between several because the fight was continuing. But the minute a Pokemon faints, so when I had the one-on-one battle and my Pokemon fainted, the gym run was over. Like it's like, okay, you failed, that's it, and you'd have to use the revive to wake up the Pokemon, etc., etc., etc. Whereas the second time I had my party of 6 and I went through 2 and I just blazed through all 3 and I stayed there to take over that spot until I took it from the red team and then put my own Pokemon there in its place. And that's where this weird metagame sort of changes too, because you're depositing one of your Pokemon as a gym leader there, and the reputation of that gym will increase over time, but you don't want to give them a good one.
So yeah, that's the hard
like
thing.
that was the hard
right?
thing for me. I didn't want to give up a good Pokemon.
Your best friend, supposedly, if your strongest Pokemon happens to be your favorite,
Yeah.
then it's like, hey, you don't want to leave one of your weaker ones there. Like
and you still
can,
own it, and it
but-
shows up on your screen every day, and it'll be returned to you if it gets kicked out of the gym, which is possible.
Yeah.
But in the field test, it wasn't a really clear sign of which way that would go. But that said, I did enjoy what I played of the battles. I felt like they were really simple, but I also felt like, okay, this is the only form of battle I see in this game, and so I'm okay with this. I just need more gyms that I feel like I have a chance with for me to really enjoy this. And right now, during the field test, I didn't have that, especially the one by the office, which is just, that's a
crazy.
terrifying gym. Like Niantic must have taken over that gym like 100 times.
Yeah, because they're all like they're
pretty strong.
Even the lower level Pokemon in there. I mean, I say level, it's more the lower combat points Pokemon.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
should
that's
say.
like how you determine the strength of the
it's-
Pokemon.
Yeah,
in
there's
the
no
game.
leveling for your Pokemon. You can strengthen them by powering them up, and you power them up by using candies, and the only way you get candies is by continuing to capture that type of
Yeah.
Pokemon,
Yep.
which
You as a
also makes some of
trainer-
them feel disposable.
You have a level, and they have combat points and hit points.
And I think that as far as I saw, and correct me if you guys figured this out faster than I did, I think the levels are just to unlock sort of items and abilities for
So
yourself
far, yeah.
rather than for like your strength or anything like that.
Yeah, and I think I just realized this. It's also worth noting that you can join up with people to
Yep.
challenge a gym.
That's right.
So I think that might also have impacted our experiences. Like we couldn't all get together and like, I mean, maybe if we went out right now and challenged that gym,
And we could.
I would still, we'd
And
probably
that's what
still
Ingress
lose.
is, right? I believe Ingress
Yeah,
is.
no, you're
people-
hacking
Yeah.
portals.
But like
people
that was
working
like a
together.
big
Yeah.
part of the first trailer, right? It's like a bunch of
Yeah.
people from
Right.
like New York, like we're all
Oh, that
in
was the
Bellevue.
raid, yeah, and that's
Yeah.
that's still like they're super hush hush about what raids are, but that
Well,
was what
yeah.
you're talking
And we
about.
should
yeah.
mention the very first thing you do after you design your character and pick clothing and stuff is you pick a team. And there's
Right.
four, I think three
Three
colors,
Three
four
colors,
colors.
red,
Yeah.
blue,
Primary
yellow.
colors.
So
Yeah.
you
Red,
pick
blue, yellow.
like we're blue, and then
I'm
you're
yellow.
yellow, she's
I'm
red.
red.
Yeah, so it's like we're good,
Yeah.
but like we all
Andrew and I are gonna take over the
I
world.
took over a blue.
I took over a blue gym. So
Oh,
there.
not for
man.
long.
Chill out.
But
Where's
in
your,
the-
where's your neighborhood again?
But is the tour that you and I took, it doesn't matter if you're on separate teams.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and you can challenge a gym. You don't have to like take it over, but you can weaken the gym.
Yeah,
that
you're
way.
both weakening that gym.
So
That's correct.
yeah, so
Wow.
it's something that I think, because right now I could see myself playing this game without ever doing battle because I do the hardcore battle thing on 3DS. I don't need
Yeah.
I don't need another battle system to that. Like, it's just not really my style.
With
That's
700 Pokemon to catch again.
Yeah.
You have plenty to look forward to.
do that hardcore IV breeding stuff. I don't need to do it.
Yeah.
But I can see myself enjoying it a lot more and actually going out and challenging gyms if I could recruit like a couple people and be like, yo,
Also-
let's all go.
To mention, what we mean to take down a gym is like each gym level has prestige that you can train, so you can go to take your Pokemon and battle your Pokemon that you've stationed at a gym and raise the level of the gym by just like defeating your Pokemon, which is really weird.
Yep.
But enemies can go, and if they defeat the trainers that are there, then you lower the prestige
lower
level.
the
You have to
prestige
lower it to
enough.
0
Yeah.
in order to take it over. And so it could be like up to 2,000. You only lower it like maybe a few hundred every time.
Do you get
Yeah,
that
that's-
Pokemon back?
Yeah, you do.
Yes.
I mentioned earlier,
That's-
you don't
Yeah.
get it back until it gets kicked out of that gym.
Yeah,
But
so that's
And
how
it just
that
appears back in your inventory?
It's
or-
always on your screen. It just has an icon of a gym over
Okay.
to the, like the left of it.
So you don't have
Yeah.
to physically go back to that gym to get it. Like,
No,
okay.
you do not. No, you
You
never
can
do.
pick up
And
your
if you have
Pokemon.
Pokemon that you install that gym, so let's say you find a gym that only had one Pokemon, you're able to add yours to that list. You're able to ask for a defender bonus every day that Pokemon is still at that gym. So every morning I wake
Wow.
up and I get some XP for doing that, and I get some. I don't know if that might be also tied to the money. Like I'm not sure.
That's really
the
cool.
in-game
I wonder
currency.
what the range is. I wonder if I'm on vacation in New York and I do that.
I
and
think
then-
you'd always
think
get
it
your
would,
defender
yeah, because it's just
bonus.
GPS.
That's
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah.
that
That's
really
shouldn't
cool.
be hard.
That's
that.
what you get.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, no, and it's overall like it's a pretty solid performing app. I mean, we had a few bugs. You know, we saw a few things, no
That's what
GPS
it's
found,
for.
but this is
Not
what field tests are
anything
for.
Horrific. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah.
It was pretty smooth sailing. Just a couple. There were like visual bugs that didn't affect. Like sometimes the Pokeball would disappear.
Yep, it's happened
this
to me a
wasn't-
few times.
Yeah, a couple times. But I would still end up catching the Pokemon, and I would get the gotcha at the bottom, and
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, okay, the AR thing just messed it up a little
Yeah.
bit, but it's not a big deal.
So the weirdest thing I've run into though, in areas with low signal, which is where I'm at in the East Bay, signal strength is terrible. It is so bad. I ran into a problem where on a block where there was only one signal node left, and I love how you guys are playing Pokemon Go now. Stop.
Sorry. It's almost over.
No, we're going to wrap up soon, I promise. I ran into this problem where I was trying to catch Pidgeotto, and it was in the middle of the animation, and everything froze because GPS was struggling to keep
yeah.
up. And I wish that the app would settle that itself. I don't know what's happening there, so I'm not going to pretend or play backseat game designer or know what's happening. But I do know that it bugged out to the point where I had to close the app. But then luckily when I opened it again, for whatever reason, I caught that Pidgeotto, so I was happy about that. So it had a happy ending, but it was a weird situation of like, oh, what's going to happen? I don't know.
I do love that feeling of when you missed one and then you get it. It's like, oh, like it was the one that got away. But
Yeah, and
no.
they tease you a little bit too. Like I saw a Taurus around the office, and then it kept getting away, and then at the bus, all of a sudden, oh, I got you. That's it. Caught.
Yeah.
So then what do we want to see for the future? Pokemon Go, we've played it for a couple days now. We definitely need to spend a little bit more time with battle, it sounds. But overall, what are some things we want to see down the line?
So
Trading. Sorry.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
my only one.
Yep.
One of
That's the
my
biggest one.
biggest thing actually is not trading, but more of like spending time with your Pokemon somehow.
Yeah.
Because like this is
Pokemon-a-me.
you have your Pokemon in your pocket, but like, well, I can just look at them, but not interact with them. I can tap it, and they'll make their cry, but that's it.
And there's already been a Pokedex app on iOS that did that. Like that's the weird thing. Like I like the Pokemon-a-me idea of like being able to like make them happy, or like even if you could
Yeah.
raise 1 CP a day by just being cute to them or something
But like,
would be a cool idea.
petting
That would be
them
cute, yeah.
or something, like if
Taking
you find
photos, if you want to take photos
so,
in
like,
real
that's-
locations with
that's
them.
such a big
Yeah.
thing too, is like we have this AR, and like I can't take photos of my Pokemon in my apartment because I've already caught them, so that's it.
Poke selfie.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a
Yeah.
Pikachu
Pikachu
sort
be
of.
hanging out on
Or
the
just
couch with all my
Miitomo,
other
but-
Pikachu plushes.
Yeah.
It would be awesome if they put like the Mi Photo stuff from Miitomo into Pokemon Go,
Exactly.
where it's like you can go to your Pokedex and you can kind of like position them on like either an AR background or like a still image background from your phone. That'd be cool.
Yeah, try something like that just to increase that sort of activity.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, so
the
I just-
interaction aspect, the shareability of like taking a picture with them.
Yeah,
I also feel like that's also, sorry, because you said
Yeah.
shareability, but sort of Twitter or Facebook or some kind of integration, I feel like that's also a missing thing. I feel like some games that tend to either be something that correlates to real world or just something that you feel comfortable sharing on either Facebook or Twitter. Like it's very cool to be able to just toss that out there through the app itself. And so far the field test version didn't have any of that.
Yeah, it's
games are very social today. Let's
Right.
face
I
it,
feel
right?
weird bringing it up again, but Miitomo is that perfect example of like
Yeah.
you take a Mi Photo and you share it on Twitter, and it's like a
Yeah.
funny little cute thing.
I want to be closer to my Pokemon. I think like that's what you get through a bunch of battles and stuff over the course of a game. Is like even newer ones have like ways you can interact with your Pokemon. It's just something so that I can care for them a little bit more than aside from just like going to a gym and like, well, here I'm gonna throw you at it. Okay, bye.
Yeah, like right now,
So-
I caught a bunch of Pidgeys like you did, Andrew, and like I just ended up transferring them all to the professor because I was farming. You get like Pidgey candies, like you get like these candies that help you power them up and stuff. So I was just. They were like somewhat disposable, which is
Yeah.
not at all how I treat every Pokemon I catch. I nickname. Like I do not treat.
They're like your babies.
Yeah, like
Even
I
your first hour Pokemon that you're not going to have at hour 20 or 30.
nickname every Pokemon that isn't a repeat that I'm catching or breeding.
Okay.
So, like every first Pokemon I catch of a species, I nickname. So that felt more impersonal. I would also like to see that and an aspect of like, here's me with my Clefairy in my apartment that I cleaned. Like,
Yeah, and I think I think what's missing from it is sort of that sense of like identity and this is mine part of it, which is like I would love to be able to when I'm home, I can like put a pin down and that's home base. And like if I'm at home base, then like I can train battle, I can
That'd be really
like
cool.
Pokemon Center style recover everybody.
Or think
like
of them transfer it to an idea they tried at least on both GBA and 3DS, but secret bases.
yeah,
Secret
yeah,
bases
totally.
are a thing
Secret bases are
that
totally.
ended up happening. Yeah, and you know when we had our Pokemon tour, Niantic made it clear that there is sort of a pipeline for this. Personally, I think that what we played in the field test was something that you see in the app world called MVP, like a minimum viable product, just sort of trying different ideas and having something to ship that then you're going to grow and add features to. And they made it very clear to us that there's a roadmap for this thing. Even in our office, our app team has a roadmap for the IGN app, for example. And so something like trading is already on that list, but something like trainers battling each other, I've never heard them talk about that. So I
Yeah.
do hope that something like that is being considered. But you can't help but notice, or at least I can't, and I'm sure you guys would agree with this, that they are deliberately going a very different route from the 3DS experience, the Nintendo device experience of Pokemon. And I think in some ways they're succeeding, but in others, they're changing the rules in a way that I'm not sure I'm on board yet, but I'm curious to learn more after this field test.
I'm open-minded. I think it makes sense that they wouldn't want to just recreate the experience on mobile that you can get elsewhere. I do think that one of the things they stress to us is that this is like a get out and talk to people kind of social kind of goal they have that Niantic as a company has with the experiences they want to create. And it just is weird to me that there isn't like a more shareable or more connection aspect.
Look at the most recent commercial for Sun and Moon. Like the way you do the social stuff is the trading and the battling.
Yeah, and so I think the sharing on social or taking pictures and then also not yet having trading are two big misses for me.
But just in mind with that commercial, I mean, the one thing that I feel has happened as a result of this app is that we have all been talking a lot more about it. Like
Sure.
I feel
Like,
we've had this very long text message chain where we're sending each other photos. That was a good time.
Andrew named the thread and put emojis in the name. That's how much we've been talking.
And it's been like since Saturday, it's just been photo. I saw this, I saw that, I got this. And it was just this cool thread of stories we're sharing with each other, I feel.